Good morning. Greetings and salutations, everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host, once again, Dan Thornton. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us here on Lions Talk Live. Before I get into today's video, I just want to reach out and say if you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. And if you got a free second, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, like button, whatever you want to call it. If you have any questions for me or comments on the video, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. But let's start talking about the Detroit Lions defense, which I think we can all agree they had a great showing just a couple days ago against Atlanta. They had a pretty good showing against Kansas City. And then, well, a lot of people would say they had a less than ideal performance against the Seattle Seahawks. So I was in a channel, Detroit Lions forum yesterday, and I was having a chat with another YouTuber about the Detroit Lions defense, Aaron Glenn, etc. So I thought, why not do a topic on it today? I think there's a lot of people that would say Aaron Glenn's job has been a little back and forth. You either think, 1 week he's doing an okay job, another week, hey, this guy needs to go. So I want to dive in and say, let's examine Aaron Glenn and try to get as analytical as possible when understanding the Detroit Lions defense, where we're at, potentially where we could be by the end of the season. So let's start off with this. The current regime, I think we can all agree, when they took over, Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, etc., as coaches with Detroit Lions, there just wasn't a lot of talent. So that first year, I'm going to say, hey, let's not examine that because they were just building with whatever leftover parts they had from the Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn era, etc., and they did draft a few players here and there, but as we all know, players take time as rookies to develop. Last year, we are all definitely aware that the team started off with one of the worst defenses in NFL history. I mean, they weren't bad, but they were just beyond bad. Hard to even grade them bad. And then we got into, obviously, the winning streak of the last, 8-9 games. The defense went from number 32 in the league up to roughly 18-19 in the league. A couple different metrics where they got into the low 20s, but you get it. They improved, and they improved quite a bit. So that's what we all expected coming into this season, that this group would be what we saw towards the end of last year. So now let's move on to this season and examine the first game of the year. That's the Kansas City game. They did play much better than I think most teams or people thought they would. They got consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Doesn't mean they got sacks, but they flushed him out of the pocket early and often. The fact that Patrick Mahomes was the leading rusher for the Chiefs, not a running back, but it had to be Patrick Mahomes. And when he's constantly having to scramble, that also did take away a lot of opportunity for him to get comfortable and throw downfield. Yes, we're all aware Travis Kelce didn't play and they had some drops. But did you know the Lions actually had more drops that game than the Kansas City Chiefs? Yet somehow that gets missed in the media. The media kind of only focuses on, Kansas City had some drops late. Well, the Lions had a fumble from Marvin Jones Jr. and some other drops during the game. So my thing is things usually even out. But I will say this, the Kansas City Chiefs did not get a win, and in part because of what the Lions defense did in that first game. Kansas City went 0 for 8 on third down opportunities to convert in the second half. That's not just a drop pass or two. That's the Detroit Lions defense stepping up. Yes, again, they didn't get sacks, they didn't get turnovers, but they had opportunity for a lot of picks. They had 3 dropped interceptions in that game. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson had 2 of them. So, did Aaron Glenn put his guys in position to succeed that game? I think we'd all have to say yes. Now, let's move on to the Atlanta game before we get to the Seattle game. The Atlanta game, I thought, was probably one of Glenn's best performances as a defensive coordinator that we've seen. But now he's in year 3. He's gotten some seasoning, some development, and I think it's starting to show. We talked last week on Lions Talk Live about the idea of moving Hutchinson and potentially Campbell to outside linebackers in a 3-4 formation. Let's remember that. We talked about it. We thought it'd be a good idea, especially with the personnel group and the emergence of several good linebackers in Detroit. Did you know there were times against Atlanta this weekend that that's exactly what happened, except it wasn't Hutchinson and Campbell, although it did happen on a couple plays. It was Derek Barnes, something I'm going to not lie, I didn't see coming. But the Detroit Lions did just that. Aaron Glenn moved Derek Barnes to an outside rush backer along with Hutchinson, and that created some problems. Yes, on the play just before half when Campbell got the sack, he was also lined up as an outside linebacker, blitzing in, and he shredded his box blockers just like Derek Barnes did. Mr. Nico, it was nice to see that Aaron Glenn being creative like Ben Johnson, and that's exactly where I'm going with this. Aaron Glenn, and this is just a small sample size. I don't want to say he's great or anything. I personally think he should be replaced, but I'm also going to try to be unbiased in this video and say this is what you can see on the video. Now talk about the defensive linemen. In the first 2 games, they were trying to contain mobile quarterbacks. So what does that mean with your interior line? It means they're not trying to rip through and get basically pressure on themselves. They're trying to push and hold the pocket in the middle of the field. They want to make sure that their outside rushers are pushing the quarterback up into them. The problem with that is while you do take away that up the field rushing lanes for a mobile quarterback, there's no real pressure getting put on that quarterback either. So one of the subtle things that the Lions did, Aaron Glenn did, in Sunday's game, if you watch our interior defensive line, and sometimes that's Hutchinson, they moved him inside on obvious passing downs, along with Kaminsky and other people over the course of the game. They could pull a lot of stunts and rolls. So I won't break down what everything is. I think most of you probably know what a stunt is. If not, that's basically where one defense interior player loops around, the other one goes the other way, just tries to create confusion with the blockers, who's picking up who. And if they don't communicate it well, especially in a loud environment like the Falcons faced at Ford Field, that's going to mean usually that interior lineman who's not picked up has got a free run to the quarterback. Go back and see what happened on the Benito Jones sack. It's exactly what happened. They stunted, they got to him, nobody picked up Benito Jones, and he had a free path to the quarterback. All right, so now let's go back to the Seattle game. While the Lions defense doesn't play great, and yes, Glenn needs some blame for this, they played a lot of soft zone, a lot of backed off man, and just let the defensive line go basically one-on-one at the quarterback. The problem with that is what Seattle did. They did a lot of 13 and 12 personnel packages. That means they're leaving in extra people to help block. They understand their offensive line's pretty weak, especially at that point with backups playing, some guys off the street. So they left in tight ends, running backs, things of that sort to help either chip or flat out block the defensive line of Detroit. And because of that, they played softer coverage in the secondary, and that I think we're all aware it didn't go well for the Detroit Lions. But being that as it may, let's also not forget, the Lions had 3 turnovers in that game. A pick 6 from Goff. You can probably wash away the St. Brown fumble right before half on the more or less Hail Mary. And then we had the David Montgomery turnover fumble to start the third quarter. On top of that, the defense was further exacerbated and put in bad situations because we went for it on a number of 4th downs, didn't get it, and gave the Seahawks a short field. So, while our defensive scheme, in my opinion, wasn't great, it also wasn't all their fault because the turnovers and the bad setups by going for it on 4th down. So, we take all this information. What can we say about Aaron Glenn? I think he is evolving. I think he is getting better. I think he is developing an idea that it's a heck of a lot better to put pressure on the other team's quarterback and make them make choices under duress and pressure and consistently make the right choices. What do we got here? Johnny, good stuff. I agree. Yeah, thanks for that, man. Defense is showing some consistency. My question is the scheme, then execution. Ultimately, he's responsible for both. Of course, execution is more on the players. I think there's a lot going on where you do have, let's all remember, we do have on this defense some rookies playing. And Brian Branch, let me know in the comment section below, how good do you think this kid is going to be? I'm starting to think, man, on a scale from 1 to 10, he's tending to look more like a 9 or a 10. I mean, I think a year from now, this kid could just be pretty great. Campbell, I get they're not playing him a ton, but that's also because I think the coaching staff says, we've got some good players out here. He's going to have to earn his meal. He's going to have to earn his reps. So we'll see, but there are some real good first, second, even third year players on this team that are developing over time. And I'm with you, Johnny, that I think Aaron Glenn is starting to get a little bit more aggressive and assertive. There were some other things they did in the Seattle game where they mixed up some coverages. They played some man with zone tendencies underneath. That's basically where you drop some linemen into coverage, and they shouldn't be there. Younger quarterbacks like Desmond Ridder often struggle with that because you're reading man across the board from the secondary. You're getting zone from defensive linemen dropping into spots you don't anticipate them. That's actually why Hutchinson got one of his tips, because he dropped instead of rushed, and that threw off the pass. But I won't go through all that. The point of all this is, I think we can say yes, probably a little bit of an overreaction after the Seahawks loss, saying that Glenn is terrible, that he should be fired. Because really, who's going to come in on a week and change it? It's going to take time. But I will say this, Glenn's going to have to keep evolving for this defense to really work. Yes, we get they got injuries across the board. You got people hurt. And it was a real credit that Iffy, Tracy, and some of the other guys came in and performed at a high level. I mean, I would say this, that was probably as perfect a opponent for Tracy Walker to come in against as he could have expected. Somebody who's run heavy, independent with short pass tendencies, that's to his strength. Longer passes, especially stuff from the middle of the field, if he's got to be the single high safety, he's just not built for that. If he's probably a little bit better with that. Hopefully, though, we get Kirby Joseph back this weekend, or excuse me, this Thursday. So, anyways, I don't want to make this video an incredibly long one, but give me your thoughts. Am I way off base with some of this stuff? What do you think, etc.? Aaron Glenn, I think, does need to grow and show some maturity and try some new stuff. Let's see. Fletch Lives Daily. I love that. I love that movie. I like Detroit's aggressiveness. You're right. I agree. I think they're going to have to keep doing that, especially Thursday against Jordan Love. I think if you can rattle him, then you got him on the run, and you're going to keep him off balance. You start letting him settle down, and he's mobile. I think that's going to be a tough day for the Detroit Lions if they do that. All right, let's see. I think Seattle was always going to be a shootout. Yeah, I agree. Dan Campbell knew Falcons didn't have the juice. I agree with that. You can't have injuries, turnovers, versus a good team like Seattle. That's the other thing to consider. Before the season, you guys let me know. You go ahead and throw your thoughts on this. Before the season, if we said you went 1-1 against Kansas City and Atlanta, would you be happy? I know I probably would have been. I would have said, yeah, against Seattle and Kansas City, if we could split those to start the year, I'd probably live with it. We probably all would have assumed the loss would have been Kansas City, the win would have been Seattle. At the end of the day, though, it is what it is. You're 2-1 now with a win over a 2-0 at the time of the game, Atlanta Falcons, and now you got an opportunity to go 3-1 Thursday night against a 2-1 Green Bay team. Green Bay's a little beat up just like Detroit. I'll dive into that tomorrow and do the mock-up video on the game, so make sure you guys tune in for that. But, good to see you this morning. Always enjoy the show in the early morning. We just need help on the right. Okay, I'm RDE side, right? The right side. Harrison Levis side is weak. I'd agree, but hey, at this point you're gonna have to make do with the pieces you got, because I don't foresee us going out and getting anybody. There's been some chatter about some trades, but all the chatter I got really that I thought was of note on the trade front was defensive end, but nobody that I thought would really come in and make an impact. And then some wide receiver talk. But the problem I have with going after a receiver at this point is really, what are you going to give up when you got Jameson Williams back in a few weeks? So we'll see where am I driving to? Fletch. So every morning, like clockwork, I go to the Circle K. I get my morning Mountain Dew before I head home and get ready to start my work day. So anywho, I'm right outside the K now, and it just become the spot where I film more often than not. So anyways, I'll let you guys get going. If you have any other thoughts, let me know. But let me know, what do you really think of the Detroit Lions defense and Aaron Glenn? I think he's starting to be a little bit more creative and give a little bit more flexibility. And if we continue to see Derek Barnes do what he did Sunday as an outside pass rusher, man, I mean, his stock will go through the roof. And I really do believe, like we talked about last week, for Hutchinson and Campbell, I think that they are built for that. So those three could really pick up a lot of slack with James Houston's injury for a little bit. So let's see what happens. But I hope they continue to be aggressive, because just my experience, all the years coaching that I have, man, passive defenses usually get beat by better teams. Aggressive teams, while you will make some mistakes, you're also going to generate some mistakes out of an offense. So let's hope the Lions keep doing it, because I know it's a whole lot more fun to watch than watching a team get picked apart. All right, well, I'll let you guys go. Enjoy the rest of your day. If some breaking news happens, I'll, of course, jump on. And otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow on the next Lions Talk Live. Take care.